reading test for IELTS. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you come from, and welcome. It's lovely to see so many of you here. I lost count at about 25 countries. Just always never ceases to amaze me what a great classroom stroke training room this is. Good. Firstly, a little bit of information about myself and the team who will be supporting me today. My name's Aidan, and I'm an IELTS teacher and teacher trainer. I'm currently based in North Wales, which is a nice sunny place this afternoon. Today, I'm working with Yasir, Louisa, Danny, and Sarah, who will be answering questions in the Q&A channel and monitoring the chat channel activity. I need to say up front that due to the large number of participants, and we're just over 1,000 at the moment, we may not be able to answer all your questions today. But don't worry about that, because I'll be showing you a resources slide at the end, and there's a place there that you can go and pose your questions on Facebook and ask questions and talk to experts there. Okay, good. As you saw just now, the webinar is being recorded, and a link will be sent out to all participants who registered for this webinar. If it doesn't arrive in 3 days, check your junk or your spam folders to see if it's in there. Okay. Now, I briefly need to focus on the coronavirus situation and the uncertainty and pressure it's causing for all of us, wherever we are. Needless to say, the situation is fluid and is changing all the time. And there are many aspects to it, including social distancing and lockdowns being put in place by governments and authorities to restrict movements and gatherings, which we all need to strictly adhere to and obey. The BC is monitoring the situation on a daily basis through colleagues in its global BC offices. And we both understand and empathise with the pressures all people are going through. And this free webinar series is part of our efforts to help. We won't be answering questions about the situation during the webinar. Before we actually start anything, I'd like to get you to answer a poll question, which will highlight what you have in terms of involvement with IELTS, taking the test or wanting to do the test, and what grades that you want to get out of it. So could I have poll question 1, please? For those of you who can't see the poll test, I'll read you the questions. The first question is, have you taken the IELTS test before? With a yes, no answer. 2, what score do you need? And there's a variety of bands, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9. If you can't see the poll test, put your answers to these questions in the chat box. If you can see the poll test, please answer it now. I'll give you a quarter of a minute. Okay, could we have the answers, please? Excellent, good. So a lot of you haven't taken the IELTS before. Some of you have, which is great. And for the most part, you're aiming to get above band 6, between band 6 to band 9. Excellent, that's really good. Thank you very much. Good. So now let's look at some information about the webinar and some of the ways that we can work in order to make it work more efficiently. Okay, the webinar is going to last for 60 minutes. Approximately 45 minutes of my presentation, and there'll be 15 minutes for answering questions, me answering your questions. And please use the Q&A for your questions and don't put them in chat. This is quite important. Good, please use the chat box only to respond to my questions, the questions I ask you, which I will be asking you during the webinar. Good. It's not going to be possible due to the large number of people that we've got in the webinar to answer everybody's questions. So if you see a question that's similar to yours, please like it. The ones that have a lot of likes are going to be the ones that are prioritized by the support team who's answering in Q&A at the moment. Good. Right, the webinar, as you know, is being recorded, and we will email you in about 3 days with the link. So please check your spam folder. If you've got any questions about test bookings, please contact your test center. If you have questions about the IELTS indicator test, please go to the www.ieltsindicator.com website. Please do not share personal information, phone numbers, and please be courteous at all times. We don't want to exclude people from the seminar, but we run the risk of doing this if you do include personal information. Okay, let's move down beyond now to look at the program. Okay, first of all, we're going to be looking at the academic reading test format. Yes, we're going to look at the academic test format. Then we're going to be looking at common problems experienced by test takers in the reading test. Then we're going to look at a few skills and strategies to develop for success in the test. Then we're going to move directly to start looking at the reading and knowing where to look for important information in the text. And this is very important because it's going to allow you to cut down the amount of reading that you have to deal with. Then we'll be looking at a test strategy, matching headings to paragraphs. The second question type we're going to be looking at, which is generally considered to be the most difficult for test takers, is the true, false, not given, and the yes, no, not given test type. We'll begin looking at strategies for both of those, and then we're also going to be looking at the third question type, which is multiple choice, and providing you with a bit of practice and some examples and a strategy for that. Good. So that's the presentation structure. And then we're going to be finishing off with some top tips. Good. So what I'd like you to do is tell me in the chat box what you know about the academic reading test. I'll give you a few questions to guide you. How long does it last? How many texts are there? How many questions do you have to answer? And how is it marked? I'll give you half a minute to a minute or so to answer those questions. Okay, I can see some great answers coming there. Delina, Giselle, Guime, excuse my pronunciation for some of these names, Manoj. Good, excellent. Okay. Excuse the hiccup while we get this working again. Good, excellent. Hang on, we're nearly there. Excellent. Excuse me, I'll catch up a bit. Technical glitches. Excellent. Good. basically, we're back to looking at the reading test format. The reading test lasts for 60 minutes, which most of you got right. That's great. And there are 3 texts. These are chosen from books, newspapers, journals, and magazines, and they're selected on the basis that they are relevant to study purposes when you go overseas to study in foreign universities or colleges. This makes them different to the ones that are part of the general training module, which are chosen for their relevance to life in an English-speaking context. Good. The texts in total are between 2,000, 2,100 and about 2,800 words in total. So this gives you an idea of what the first real challenge that faces test takers in the academic reading test, and that is the sheer volume of reading that they have to squeeze into the 1 hour. So obviously, this means that time management is going to be one of the major skills that you are going to need to practice. Good. There are 40, the texts are different levels of difficulty, but they don't start with an easy one and then end up with a difficult one. This can be jumbled up. There are 40 questions in total that test takers have to answer, with 1 mark for each correct answer. And it's important that you realize there's no negative marking, which means if you don't know an answer, you can always guess. This means by no negative marking, if you leave a blank or an unanswered question or you get one wrong, it will be marked wrong, but you will not lose any marks from the ones that you get correct. So if you get 30 correct and 10 incorrect, you're not going to lose any marks from your 30. Good. The number of texts can vary, the number of questions per text can vary, but they will always add up to 40 in total. And the last point to mention is that there is no extra time that's going to be added for transferring questions to an answer sheet. So you'll need to put your answers straight on the answer sheet as you make decisions about them. Good. This gives you an idea what the academic reading scores or bands are going to look like. There's a range for each, as you can see. This means if you want to get a band 7, you need to get either 30, 31, or 32. Band 8, 35, or 36. So this gives you an idea of what you need to aim at. Good. Common problems. What I'd like you to do is put what you think are the main problems that you or test takers are going to experience with the academic reading text and put them in the chat box, please. Excellent. Good, Carla. Yeah, Consuelo, Anne, Xiao. Good answers. Yeah, you're getting the right idea, and you've obviously experienced this yourself as part of your practice, which is good. Okay, excellent. Running out of time. Time, as I said earlier, in terms of the sheer volume of reading that test takers have to do, is one of the main issues. Basically, running out of time, I think the causes of this are trying to read the whole text, every word. This is my experience with many test takers. Spending too much time on difficult questions, in other words, stopping and not moving on and keeping to time, basically trying to understand every word, which is quite understandable. But basically with practice, you can raise your confidence levels and hopefully start becoming more effective. Another problem that candidates or test takers suffer from is not reading and understanding the questions or instructions effectively. For example, if the instruction is to write true or false to answer the question, many test takers would write a tick or a cross or T or F. Basically, you need to follow the instructions to the letter. Okay, in general, one of the solutions is over time to develop good reading skills. One way of doing this is by doing a little bit of reading every day. Doesn't need to be a lot. Pick a short text, read it, make sure you keep notes of the vocabulary that you don't understand, and follow up by finding out the meanings for these words or phrases. Vocab is the skill that underpins all 4 tests in the IELTS, and it's something that you need to be doing from day one in terms of keeping records and playing around so your understanding of new words develops. Consider the different ways of reading. If you're lucky enough to be in a class, your teachers can teach you the skills of scanning, which is basically reading for details. It could be numbers, it could be names, addresses, words. And again, this is a common skill across other IELTS tests, except for example, the listening. Skimming is very important. This is where you will get the skills of knowing general meanings of paragraphs, potentially general meanings of texts. The other thing which we can start a little bit of work on with you today is you need to start developing your question answering strategies for each of the question types. These need a lot of practice, and you need to be able to understand them effectively to succeed in the exam. Good. Basically, you need to remember that the reading test is not testing your knowledge of a particular subject. It's testing your reading abilities and your reading skills. Strategies, which we'll touch on briefly as we go through the rest of the webinar. Underlining key words, underlining key sentences, reading instructions. If I was to rewrite this particular slide, I'd put good timekeeping at the top. This is an essential skill when you're dealing with academic reading in the IELTS test. Good. What I'd like you to do now is think what types of activities or question types you can think of that are going to be in the reading test, and put your answers in the chat box, please. Good, excellent, Mahiria. Excuse my terrible pronunciation. Amandeep, good. Rebecca, Beverly, yeah. Edric, excellent. Carla, good. Malika, very good. I think some great answers there. You obviously know what the answers are to question types. Let's have a look. Good. The first set, multiple choice, identifying information, identifying the writer's views. There are actually 14 in total question types that they could use when they're writing exams. Each passage will have about 3 or 4 question types for test takers to answer. And as I reiterated, to reiterate from what I said earlier, test takers need to know how to deal with each one of these and understand how they work. Good. Let's move on. A key skill, as I said earlier, a key skill that test takers need to develop is the ability to find key information in a text or paragraph, okay? And IDing, for example, identifying the main ideas and supporting points is a key skill in both academic reading and academic writing. And this in reading can mean that you cut down on the need to read everything. Please, can I have poll question 3, which will focus on you answering where you are likely to find the main meaning of a paragraph or a topic sentence. For those of you who can't see the question, please answer in the chat box either in the middle, the beginning, or at the end of the paragraph. I'll give you about 10 seconds to do this. Good. Can we see the answers, please? Excellent. Most of you've got it right, 73%, which is fine. That is where the main information in any paragraph or text, English text, is likely to be found. More often than not, it's the first sentence, but sometimes it's going to be the second sentence, but it will be at the start of the paragraph. And identifying this is key. Good, let's move on. Paragraph A. What I'd like you to do here is find the topic sentence and tell me in the chat box where it starts and ends. I'll give you a quarter of a minute to do this. Okay. I've seen some good answers there. Excellent. Danny, can you share? Danny, can you share your screen? We have technical problems. Thanks, Danny. It's coming up now. It's the next slide. Excellent, very good. I need to be able to see the full screen if I can. Excellent, that's better. Very good. Okay, so we've got good answers in the chat box. Fairuz, good. Zareen, good. We are actually looking at the first sentence, the role of governments in environmental management. Good. Can you find the topic sentence in paragraph B? Well, I think we've just jumped to it, so you can see it. Good. Again, in these examples, as you can see, it is the first sentence. It's not always going to be like this. Sometimes, as I said earlier, it's going to be the second sentence, but it always will be at the beginning of the paragraph. Great, thank you. Okay, the first question type we're going to be looking at is matching headings to paragraphs. In this question type, you are expected to match headings to specific paragraphs from a text. One thing that makes this question type a little bit more difficult is that there will always be more headings than paragraphs. Another problem may well be that the headings will include similar vocabulary or the same vocabulary, as you'll see in the example you'll see in a minute. So let's have a look at the strategy, steps to follow. The first thing that you could do is read through the headings and underline and highlight key words. Okay? And the second thing you could do is, and I always think this is really important, identify the topic sentences in each paragraph, highlighting the key words somehow. I would, if you're using a pencil, put a circle around them. This is where the main meaning is. 3, have a look at the key words in the headings that you've underlined and try and match them to key words in the topic sentences to find where the matches are. Good. 4, if necessary, choose 2 headings and then go back to check. I think the main thing that you need to bear in mind there is once you're going back to check, make sure that you have a guess there so that you can move on quickly. Good. Let's have a look at an example. Here we've got a topic sentence. Unfortunately, I can't show you a whole text. I can't show you a whole text because we haven't got the space to put a whole text on the screen. I have one a little bit later that we can look at, which is a sort of edited text. Okay, take a look at the topic sentence and quickly type in the chat box what you think are the key words. I'll give you half a minute. Good. We're not looking for the answer yet, Santiago. Good, excellent, Ali. Now the answers are piling in, which is great. Excellent, thanks a lot. Okay, good. The key words are role, government, environmental management. Excellent. Now look at the headings and see if you can find which one is the best match. I know some of you have already started to do that, but bear with me. As I said in the strategy, and we've jumped a step, a good way is to ID the keywords in the headings first and then see which match. So please put 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in the chat box, which you would select as the right answer. Good, Nikita, excellent. Anne, Gladys, Kuldeep. Yes, I think you've got the right answer. That's excellent, very good. Can we move to the next slide? Thanks, Danny. Here we've got the topic sentence with the words, the key words highlighted, and then you've got the matching under the heading. So you can see government, management, and environment is a virtual direct match with the topic sentence. Now, if you're lucky, this is what's going to happen. So well done to those who got this correct. Often, it's not going to be the case that there's a direct match. You'll have to use your vocabulary skills and think in terms of looking for synonyms to find the right match. As you'll see this in the next example. Good. In this example, you have 9 headings, and I've taken 4 specific paragraphs and adapted them from a text from livescience.com. So we've got paragraph A, paragraph B, paragraph C, and paragraph D. And in this example, you're going to need your vocab skills to choose or discard the right or the wrong headings. The first thing you need to do, and this is what we're going to focus on to begin with, is not the actual text and the headings. The first thing you need to do is read and follow the instructions very carefully when answering. So can we have poll question 4? Excellent. For those of you who can see this poll question, what I want you to do is read the instructions. You can move the poll question around the screen if you need to see the instructions. According to the instructions on the slide, which of the 3 choices below is the right one? I'll read them out for those of you who can't see them. Capital A1, as in number, capital B2, capital C4, or capital D3. The second choice, A, full words, A1, B2, C4, D3. And the final choice, A, Roman numerals 1, B, Roman numerals 2, C, Roman numerals 4, and D, Roman numerals 3. Which one do you think is correct? I'll give you 10 seconds to answer that. Okay, could we have the answers, please? Excellent, yes, very good. 83% of you got it right. You have to be very careful following the instructions in all the question type activities. It's a case of knowing what you're reading. Thank you. Excellent. Let's have a look at slide 14. Great, thanks, Danny. In this slide, I've chosen the topic sentences for you. What I'd like you to try and do is match the 4 headings to the 4 paragraphs correctly. I'll give you a couple of minutes to read the text because it's very long, and then we'll have a look at your answers. Okay, good, thank you, Jafar, Maftuna, Beverly, Amandeep, Hikmat. Natalia, excellent, very good, you're thinking. Aziz. Mohammed, good. Kushbu, excellent. Okay, answers are coming in nicely now. Very good. Danny, can we have a look at the next slide and see the answers? Excellent. The answer to A is heading 2. The paragraph explains what a greenhouse is, possible uses, and how it works during the day and night. Excellent. B is the first heading. The paragraph discusses the changes in temperature in a greenhouse and discusses this in relation to the Earth's atmosphere and what's happening these days. C is heading 3. This one's a bit harder. The aim of the paragraph is to explain the process behind global warming. There's some information about gases, which is heading 6, but it's there to help explain the process. The information about carbon dioxide is additional information. And D, paragraph D, is heading 5. This paragraph discusses, whether it's too late or not to change the effects of global warming, and it presents 3 possible options. Okay? Excellent. Let's move to another question type, the second one that we're going to be dealing with, which is generally considered to be the most difficult of the question types that test takers have to deal with. The yes, no, not given versus true, false, not given. Okay? This is, as I said, the one that most test takers find hard. Let's consider, first of all, what's the difference between them. If you know, put a comment in the chat box, and I'll give you about a quarter of a minute to do that. What is the difference? Oh, good, excellent, very good, Nikita. Maria, yeah, some good answers coming up now. Excellent, thank you. Danny, can you move the slide on? The first text, true, false, not given, the first half of this question type is used by examiners to focus on factual information. So it's generally used for scientific texts or texts with numbers or factual information in them. The yes, no, not given is used by test takers when they're dealing with argumentative texts, texts with opinions and attitudes. This is seen by many as the harder of the two, as opinions and attitudes may not be openly stated in texts, which means that test takers will need to be able to infer or read between the lines to get to the answer. And this can be problematic because this skill of inferring or inference is a very high order skill, and it's one that even native speakers often find difficult to deal with. Very good. Let's have a look at a simple example. What does the question type look like? What you'll see is the instructions at the top asking you for either true, false, not given, or yes, no, not given. Then you will see a text. In this case, it's very short. As I explained, I can't give you whole texts here on these slides due to the pressure of space. This is also intended to be a simple example that shows you, test takers, the difference between true, false, not given, which is often a problem, especially when it becomes between false and not given. It's worth considering what the difference between the 3 options are. It's true or yes if a statement agrees with all parts of the info in the text. Statement's false or it's no if the statement contradicts or is different to the information in the text. It's not given if there is not enough information in the text to match all points in the statement. Okay, can we move on to the next one? Good. Let's have a look at the strategy that will help you deal with this one. The first thing you do is, and we'll do a big example a bit later, turn the statements into yes, no questions and underline the key words in the question and think about possible synonyms for these words. Why a yes, no question? This is far easier for test takers to keep in their mind as they're reading the text for answers than it is to keep a whole statement in your mind, okay? Identify topic sentences in each paragraph. Scan the appropriate paragraphs and topic sentences, closely looking for keywords and synonyms which relate to the yes/no questions you've created. You may want to look at the last sentence in each paragraph for the general meaning. Read closely to infer the meaning and be careful. Watch out for modals and negatives. Okay, come up with an answer, even if you're finding it difficult, and then move on. Don't delay. Remember, time management is a key skill in the academic reading test. Okay, let's have a look at an example, which I'm going to get you to do by yourselves. See if you can do this. Look at the statements and decide which is true, which is false, and which one's not given. Type your answers in the chat box and I'll give you some time, like a quarter of a minute, because it's, again, a fairly simple test. Good, Ayusha. Very good, Shao. Redmi. Good. Zana, excellent. Natalie. Some good answers coming in. Sophia, Valentine, you obviously have understood the difference, which is excellent. Okay, thank you for that. Let's move on and have a look at a yes, no, not given, which is going to be slightly more complicated. Excellent. Remember what I said about the yes, no, not given, requiring the skill of inferring and the use of vocab skills so you can find synonyms. In other words, the words won't match exactly and you'll need to look around. First of all, you need to turn the statement into a yes, no question, and I've done that for you. Was a congestion charge seen as essential to reduce traffic in the capital? Good. You see the text in red at the top? Take a look and decide if the answer is yes, no, not given for that statement, and type your answer in the chat box. I'll give you about a quarter of a minute to do that. Excellent. Gertrude, good. Ahmed, Edric, Inda, yes, good. Shri, Aya, Mariana, Liana, very good. Okay, thank you. Yes, the answer is yes. The information, if you look at the text, it says a tough but necessary decision. If you look at the statement, this is a synonym for essential. So you can see quite how hard it is sometimes to look for the synonyms. Excellent. Good. Tips. Could be called tips and traps for this type of question. If there is a comparative structure in the statement, check there's one in the text as well. If there isn't a comparative structure in both, the answer is likely to be not given. Look for all in the text and statement. If one of them says some and the other says all, the answer is going to be probably false. If the text says majority and the statement says some, then the answer is likely to be false or not given. Lastly, remember, if you can't think of the answer, guess. Don't wait, don't waste time. You can either put a question mark after the question, so you can come back at the end if you have extra time, or you can just guess, basically. Remember, don't leave the question with no answer at all, because that means you're not going to have even the possibility of getting a mark. Good. Excellent. Let's have a look at the final question type we're going to look at today. This is multiple choice. This is a very commonly used question type in the academic reading text, and it's used to deal with scanning for details, picking up specific information, names or numbers of one sort or another, or facts. It's also used to test general meaning. In this activity, as you can see, test takers are asked to choose the correct answer to a question or the correct ending to a sentence from 3 or 4 possible options. Good. What I'd like you to do first is have a look at the text in blue and try to decide what you think are the key words and phrases in the text and put your ideas in the chat box. So keywords and phrases in the text. We're not looking for answers here, guys. Good. Intervention, bullying. Very good. Emmanuel, Norway. Radu, good. Excellent. Satya, campaign. Evaluation. Good. Excellent. The ones I was looking for were Norway, intervention, intervention campaign rather. Bullying was halved. Good. What I'd like you to do now is look at the options, which I guess you've already started doing. I can see from the chat box, and decide which is what you think is the closest option. Put your answers in the chat box. Good. Esther, fine. Olakule, Shao. Yeah, I think you're getting the idea. Amandeep, Dennis, good. Chandra, Ahmed, excellent, very good. Vahid. If you're not sure if you've got the right answer, maybe take a little bit of time when you go do the rerun, when you get the link to this webinar, go back and have a look. Excellent. Let's have a look at slide 23. Good. The keywords are highlighted in red in the text. Most of you got those right, which is excellent. And by underlining the keyword, you could get to see where the answer is, which is A. Reasons, brief discussion. A says it declined by 50%, and the synonym in the text is halved. So you can see the need for synonymy in this question type. B is wrong, as it says 21 schools reduced bullying. The text doesn't say this happened across 21 schools. C is wrong because it says 2 years is the best time for the campaign. And the text has no mention of this. D is wrong because it said bullying is worse in the UK. The text doesn't mention the UK. Good, excellent. Let's have a look at the strategy for multiple choice. Read the possibilities and make predictions based on logic and any background knowledge that you have. Sometimes you can guess because you know what the topic is. It's going to help you save time. Read, underline key words in each of the distractors and in the stem. Go to the appropriate part of the text and underline and note the key words. Okay? Close read to find the best match. One point, which I believe is true, is that the order of the multiple choice questions follows the information in the text. So you don't need to read the text each time that you answer one of those multiple choice questions. If the answer is not immediately apparent, at least put a question mark or note against any distractors that are clearly incorrect. Good? Can we move on? If you can't find an answer, put a question mark against it so you can return at the end and you can check the question and possibly even put in a guess. Good. Remembering, time management is key. Guesses are the way forward if you don't know the answer because there is no negative marking in IELTS, and I can't stress that enough. I was always surprised when I was teaching IELTS in universities in Britain to find that candidates, test takers left answers blank. Okay, let's have a look at top tips. Read the text quickly. By reading the text quickly, I mean underline the topic sentences in each paragraph and read the last sentence so that you can develop an awareness of what is the key meaning in each paragraph. Okay? Don't need to read everything. You don't need to focus on every single word. Analyze the questions and underline the key words. Okay? Look for the answers, considering synonyms, and remember to put what you think are possible answers directly on the answer sheet. If you're not sure if they're correct, I would put a question mark next to them so you can go back and check at the end. Make sure that you follow the instructions to the letter. This is really important. And please, time management, again, it comes down as top tip 4, but I think it should be top tip 1. Don't spend more than 20 minutes on any of the 3 passages. You will need all the time that you have within that 20 minutes to deal with the 3 or 4 question types and the questions that you have to answer in each. Okay, good. And please, again, I come back to this, don't leave questions unanswered. Guess. There is no negative marking. Okay, good. I'm going to move to the Q&A channel now, see what questions are there. Where are we? Evelyn, how can I differentiate false and not given answers? A false answer, going back to my comments when we were looking at false and not given, or no and not given, is where there is no information in the statement that is in the text. Okay, that's not given or false. Suggestions for band 7. What I would suggest you do is that you look at Khushbu, hopefully my pronunciation's right this time. You go to the IELTS.org or takeielts.org and you download or you look at the marking criteria and you look at the marking criteria for band 7 very carefully. Remember, there are no marking criteria for reading, so in that instance, we're looking at speaking or writing. How to know the purpose of the passage, Mohammed? Very good question. Very important question. Basically, the answer to the purpose of the passage can be found in the introduction or the first part of the passage, and underlined in the topic sentences in each paragraph. That's where the meaning will be. No, Aaron or Mahia, as you comment, it is a full sentence in written text. It's not going to be a phrase. What's an acceptable time to skim a text? Well, if you consider you've got 20 minutes, I would say that you need to skim a text, I would say, for no more than 3 to 5 minutes. Joshua. To know more about the computer-delivered test, you'll see a link on the resources slide, which is coming next, which is where you can take a free familiarization course or test to see how it works. So don't worry about that now. Can you tell me how I should start reading? Fida, very good question. Should I read the full text or first read questions? I think opinion on that is divided. Personally, I think it's important to start to get to know the meaning of the text. So I would look at the topic sentences and underline them, and the last sentence in each paragraph to get an idea of meaning. And then I would look to see how you can match the questions to them. Okay, Babantunde. The password for this particular webinar is 5L $FV lowercase 6Z at. Okay, it would be good if somebody could put that in the chat channel so people can see it. Good. Inferences, Mohammed. When you're looking at yes, no, not given questions, it's to deal with writers' opinions and attitudes. Basically, these are often not overtly stated in texts, which means that you're going to have to think around and infer what a writer's attitude and opinion is. It is a very high order skill, and it's basically one that you will take a lot of practice at, or most test takers will. I know I don't find it easy, and I'm a native speaker. Okay? Where are we? No, Sally, 60 minutes are not devoted to one text. There are 3 texts in the reading test, and you need to devote, therefore, 20 minutes to each of those texts. Okay, let's see what else we have. Hopefully I'm answering your questions. I know my team has been in the background answering a lot of your questions. Mohammed, I've answered inferences. Good. It's hard for me to say, Ahmed, if you finished pre-intermediate 2 and what your grade is going to be. I would talk to your teacher about that if you are lucky enough to be in a class. You can read the questions before a text in Phoenix, but as I said earlier, opinion is divided on whether it's better to read the text first or skim the text first, or whether, and then deal with the questions, or whether you can start with the questions. Personally, I prefer to skim the text first and then move to the questions, because you will have an idea of the meaning. How many questions for each text? Approximately, you're looking at about 12 or 13. As I said, in the format, the number of questions for each text will vary, but the total will always be 40. Rita, if you attended a previous webinar, you will have received a link for it. If you didn't attend a seminar, you won't have received a link. In that case, you need to go and look at the website, look at the schedule for the webinars, and register for the ones that you want to attend in the future. Edric, if it's a passage with a topic that you personally know, is it safe to just quickly read the text of the passage and use stock knowledge instead? I would be very careful about doing that, Edric. Quite simply, the answers have to come from the text itself and not from personal knowledge. So be careful with doing that. Roshan, unfortunately, this is not the general training module for reading. There is a webinar that focuses on reading for the general training module. You'll need to go to the website and check the schedule to find out when it's taking place. I didn't say don't read the whole text. I said read and underline the topic sentences and the final sentence in each paragraph. This will help you avoid having to read the whole text and getting bogged down with difficult words that you don't understand. Okay? Okay, I do believe, Mustafa, that someone is going to put the password for this webinar at some point in the chat box or send it out to you. So Louisa, I think I've answered this question about reading the questions before the text itself. As I said, be careful with that. Opinion is divided. There are some differences between the academic and general reading modules. The general reading is different to the academic reading in that the texts are chosen for their relevance to living in an English-speaking context like Australia, Britain, America, New Zealand, or Canada. Yes, you have, Verena, you have a pencil with you, so you may not be able to do it in color, but you can certainly come up with some way of underlining topic sentences or putting circles around keywords. That's the way I teach my students to do it. Let's have a look at some of the other questions. We've got a bit more time left. I would go to the resources when we look at the resources slide and start exploring the practice activities and the vocab apps that are there that will help you develop a little bit. Short time is not always helpful for test takers. It depends on the level that you are already at. Wodaska, as I said earlier, you need to go to the website for these webinars and look for the schedule, which will tell you when webinars will be run in future. You can register for the ones you want, and then you can then receive the link afterwards. Margarita, is the time stopped every 20 minutes or do we manage it by ourselves? That's a very good question. Basically, you are, as I said in the webinar, the key person in time management, which is why it is such an important skill for you to start managing. When I'm teaching IELTS, I always do timed activities with my classes to make sure they take it on board. Mylene, how can I underline the keywords on the computer-based test? Basically, when you get the familiarization course, you'll be able to see how to deal with the computer-delivered test. I won't touch on the details now. Hussein, if I'm not sure about the answer and have to guess, do you advise me to put not given instead of yes, no? Basically, it will be a guess. Hopefully it'll be an educated, calculated guess, or even just a pure guess. I can't really answer your question with a specific answer so that you get it right. Block letters, is it acceptable? Yes, that's not a problem. Just make sure that your handwriting is legible. Okay, I'm going to move to the resources slide now. Okay, excellent. Visit the IELTS, takeielts.org site, which is excellent for preparation